Another key pilot site in the EBENTO project is Tallinn, Estonia, a city where renovation is not just an opportunity, but a necessity. With thousands of apartments buildings built before the 19th, the need for scalable, efficient renovation solutions is very real. Today, we are in Tallinn to explore how EBENTO is contributing to this challenge and to learn from one of the teams that has been driving this work forward in a very impressive way. Today, we have Ergo Pikas from the Tallinn University of Technology in Estonia, who has played a key role in the Estonian pilot side. So Ergo, thank you very much for being with us today. So how
thank
do
you for the
feel
invitation.
I'm
feeling great.
You
thank you for
approach
the
the
invitation.
final sprint of the EBENTO project?
Yes, I'm feeling good. Thank you for the invitation. I think it's very important to share what we have been doing, developing as part of the EBENTO project. And I hope that Tallinn pilot is also interesting to the other projects similar or along the same path that we are.
I'm sure. So that's great to hear. Let's jump into it. So let's start with the basics to understand the context of your work. So, well, your name, your organization, what was your role in EBENTO?
As already said, my name is Ergo Pikas. I'm an associate professor at the Tallinn University of Technology in the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture. My role in the EBENTO project has been most related to the pilot coordination not only in Estonia, but also as part of the task 5.2. So we were coordinating the pilot activities across the different countries. But also the implementation and the testing of the EBENTO OSS in the Estonian pilots, development of decision support tools for the housing associations, and then development and validation of commissioning framework for the indoor climate systems. In Estonia, in general, we had two pilots, actually, not just one. The two different pilots focused on the different aspects. So the Energy 13 pilot 2 was focused more on the design, construction, and handover, and focused on the commissioning specifically. And then the Academia 4 pilot, which was the main pilot for us, was about the planning of the renovation activity and the design of the renovation activity and preparation of the renovation activities. So we had two buildings with a total number of apartments around 116. And we have these kinds of similar buildings, around 14,000 buildings like that in Estonia. So so the work we are doing here is quite significant, not only for the EBENTO project, but also in terms of the replication to all the other similar buildings in Estonia, and possibly also to all the middle, like Eastern European, but also Middle European countries where the, post-Second World War buildings were very industrialized. So making it very, a great target for the work we have been doing as part of this project. Sure. And we have been disseminating this work in different ways, of course, through the engagement of the different players on the market, but also publishing quite a few research papers altogether, I think around 5, 6, or 7 even, related to the pilot activities.
Yeah, indeed. So all the information actually it's in the EBENTO website, so you can check them out. And it's really interesting because Tallinn represents a much wider reality in Estonia, and where most resilient buildings face similar challenges, as you have mentioned. So actually, you can replicate the work that you have done in EBENTO in other parts of Estonia and also in other countries because of the way of they built this kind of residential buildings. So. Yep, that's make your pilots very valuable. It's not just one building, it's a model for thousands of buildings. So now let's talk about
so the decarbonization is the common challenge to all the now member states of the EU, yes, and Estonia is no exception. Actually, it's the quite opposite. So like I mentioned, 14,000 buildings built using very standardized solutions after the Second World War, and it's on the one hand, this standardization makes this, how to say, building stock, how to say, boring, but on the other hand, it makes it suitable for a certain ways of doing things, such as the industrialization using prefabricated elements and etc. But also the automation of the processes, like with the digital tools or something like that.
So retrofits now can be made more easily nowadays. So now let's talk about the people behind the project, because innovation only works when users, of course, are part of the process and the progress. So what type of users were involved in your pilot site? How many users participate? And you have mentioned some engaged activities. So can you explain a little bit this engagement activities, workshops, co-creation activities? I don't know.
So in general, we can divide the stakeholders that we involved into 4 different stakeholder groups. These include residents and owners, designers and contractors, public authorities, but also the researchers and students, who are also important because the future will be delivered by them. Yes. But let's start from the residents and owners. We organized quite a few different seminars, workshops focused on different aspects, from identifying the general challenges of the renovation to actually planning renovation solutions for the academy for building, where we had altogether 2-3 meetings with the residents of the building, and we developed for this meeting different tools and means and methods for them to basically understand the scope of the renovation and the implications of the different renovation choices and alternatives on not just the energy efficiency, but also on the cost and monthly utility costs. And what we found out was, especially the latter one was very important. So once the residents understood the implications of the renovation choices on their monthly renovation or monthly utility costs during the warm and the cold period, this helped them to better understand what is the impact of the renovation. Because if you just say them that the renovation costs 3 or 4 million euros, it doesn't help them much, because it doesn't tell them what it means for their monthly incomes and outcomes or expenses. So this was very important. For designers and contractors, we had quite a few discussions with the designers and contractors in the sense of doing industrialized renovation, doing batch renovation, but also implementing energy performance contracting. And we came to the same conclusion that all the principles that are part of the energy performance contracting can be applied also in design build and other types of like procurement models and construction project delivery models. But energy performance contracting as such directly is not very feasible in Estonian context, because it doesn't make sense for the apartment buildings to go directly for the energy performance contracting, because it's financially too costly. And it makes more sense for the apartment buildings to loan directly from the bank and invest through those means the renovation activities. These are just some examples. I think we all together had more than 10 different interviews, workshops, seminars. We engaged, I would even say, more than 100 persons throughout the different stages of the project and in the different kind of objectives in mind and etc. And finally, of course, we have been engaging a lot of researchers and students into this project, developing different master's dissertation works, research articles for the district renovation, for the supporting the decision making in the renovation processes and etc. So I think this project has been very successful in the sense of engagement of different stakeholders.
It's great to see how user engagement is becoming central in projects like EBENTO, because at the end of the day, they are key for the good progress of the project, because without them, we cannot advance at the end. So congratulations for your big effort, because 100 users engaged, it's a lot. It seems not a lot, but at the end, believe me, it's a lot of users engaged.
Yeah, these are direct engagements, but when we take indirect engagements, the number is probably much higher. So
yeah. So yeah, not just renovating buildings, but also building trust, right, along the way. So now let's move into the technical side of the EBENTO, where a lot of innovation really happens. So what EBENTO solutions or activities were implemented in your pilot sites? What are the main results or outcomes achieved? And if you can mention what worked particularly well in this implementation in your pilot site?
So in Estonian pilot, we implemented the modules 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first one, home energy management, was focused on the baselining of the both buildings, and it's about understanding the current conditions and existing conditions of the buildings in order to plan out the new renovation solutions and alternatives. Because actual savings depend on the actual current state of the building. So that was very important at the beginning, but not only from the perspective of the energy, but also on the indoor environmental quality. So we had measurements in the buildings in terms of understanding what is the current indoor environmental quality in the sense of the temperature, CO2 concentration, humidity, lighting, etc. So it helped us to understand what is good, what is not maybe so good, and why do we need a renovation, not only for the purpose of energy savings, but also for improving the indoor climate. Because in some instances, for example, CO2 concentration in the apartments peaked around 1,800, 900, which is like 3 times more than it should be. Yes. So this is not something that we would like to have from our good environment. In the second module, module 2, renovation simulation and scenarios, we focused on the development of the inventory and the design BIMs, comfort class targets in design briefs, patch renovation production analysis, and then economic assessments of the different alternatives. And based on this, we developed some tools and means for the building associations to make decisions about the different alternatives and their impacts on the renovation. In module 3, our focus in Tallinn pilot was on the commissioning and quality. So we developed a commissioning guidelines for the indoor climate systems like building services, ventilation, heating, cooling, etc., based on the local and international standards. And together with this, also the practical checklists to implement them on the construction sites. So because it's good to have maybe like a theory, but theory needs to be put into practice, and the checklist is very good operational or practical way of doing it. Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, for the performance contracting in module 4, which was not maybe the main focus of our pilot, because we focus more on these first 3 modules. But what we found out is that the problems or the challenges we are facing in the renovation, and from the Energy 13, we can take some lessons learned and implement them in the second pilot, Academia 4. Yes. And that's what we did. We implemented commissioning clauses. We implemented, target performance clauses in the contracts and etc. So the lessons learned from the Energy 13 were used in the Academia 4.
Okay, so indeed, inside of the project, you came up with some lessons learned, best practices, and you apply and you replicated this knowledge transfer in the second. So which is great because we demonstrate that we can replicate indeed the lessons learned and the knowledge that we can transfer this knowledge into another buildings, right? So it's a really good example, actually.
Exactly, yes. So that actually was quite useful. So what works in practice and what doesn't work in practice, and this helped us to kind of direct our focus in the Academia 4 project at what we learned in Energy 13. Yes.
Okay. It's like a strong example of how technology and practical implementation can really go hand in hand. So congratulations for your big work in EBENTO and in Tallinn. So looking beyond the project itself, what is the main impact or legacy of EBENTO at your pilot site? And do you expect any long-term benefits or continuation after the project ends?
For sure. Yeah. So I think when it comes, I think we can divide the impacts or the benefit, we can think of the benefits and impacts in different ways, but the tangible impact, we actually had a tangible impact in Tallinn pilot. Altogether, 80 apartments in one building and 38 apartments in another building, which makes up 116 apartments. were renovated basically, and the conditions for the people living in those buildings were significantly improved. So that's already a very good, strong, tangible impact. And those lessons learned are transferable to other contexts, as we already demonstrated as part of our own pilot. We took knowledge and lessons learned from one pilot to another pilot within the same pilot basically. So the means and methods for the decision making, I think these are definitely replicable. These are part of the EBENTO platform as well for planning the renovation activities and for figuring out what kind of solutions you would like and what are the impacts of this. This is definitely transferable, considering especially because the buildings we are targeting are mostly very standardized, and the solutions for them are also relatively standardized. So it makes sense to actually standardize the decision making and the tools for making those decisions. So then, of course, commissioning guidelines. I think this project was just a starting point. We developed only the theoretical principles and also the checklists, but now they need to be embedded into actual renovation planning, design, and construction processes. And this can be done only together with those partners, with those companies, with the maybe Estonian investment agency and the CredEx who are supporting the renovation activities, that they actually would require companies to use those guidelines. And this is what we would like to focus in the upcoming activities.
Okay, and you are already in touch with them for this?
Yeah, we are in close collaboration with so the agency dealing with the renovation grants used to be called CredEx, but they during the project they changed their name, so now they're called Estonian Investment Fund. So, and they are responsible for the distribution of the national, but also support coming from the Europe in terms of the renovation grants. And what they do is that in order to get the grant, you have to comply with the grant rules and requirements. And that means you need to do a deep renovation, you need to achieve at least energy performance C class, you have to invest into ventilation systems, heating systems, and you have to do a proper thermal insulation of the envelope.
Okay. I feel like the pilot could really have a life well beyond the EBENTO project. So yeah, looking forward, how do you transfer all the knowledge from EBENTO into another projects or initiatives, and also in Estonia? Will be great to hear from you. So now let's bring in the human perspective again. We want to know about the feedback from the end users, testimonials, etc. So what feedback did you receive from users?
There are quite a lot. So, but just to give a couple of examples, and let's start from the big picture kind of comments. So relatively recently, when there was this NS13 building renovation project opening, then the deputy mayor of the Tallinn city said that these kinds of investments will strengthen the city's social network, and they are very important for every person needs a place where they can feel cared for and dignified. Yes, and the city's task is to ensure that those who temporarily need support are not left alone. Yes, or left behind them. So we actually had also very strong social impact in this project, because NS13 is a social house. And people living there need support from the city, from the government, and from the rest of the societies. Then during this, Academia D4 pilot, I think what were especially illuminating were the meetings with these residents of the building. They said, based on the surveys we did, 77% of the residents strongly agreed that they need a ventilation, which is not very common in Estonia, especially when it comes to renovation. So when we say that let's do the renovation, the first thing they immediately think about when it becomes too costly is that let's cut the ventilation solution. But then it's a problem. Yes, ventilation.
Okay.
Renovated building without the ventilation has a lot of indoor climate issues, and you don't want to do it. But after our explanation and simplification and examples of what can happen if they don't do it properly, they understood that they actually have to do it, and around 80% agreed they have to invest into ventilation as well.
Okay, great.
And finally, one of the, for example, workshop organizers and also the participants says once the costs regarding the total project price were, how to say, transferred or converted into numbers that the residents understand, for example, the monthly utility bills during the warm and the cold period, it helped them to better understand what kind of decision they're making. Because before that, like I was saying, is 3 million, 4 million euros, it doesn't make a difference for them. It's all very large numbers.
Yeah. So now they can understand the energy bills also, and the different kind of renovations and the importance also of this kind of the different renovations that you have done. For example, the ventilation, because if you don't think about the importance, you prefer to avoid this part of the budget, right?
Yes, and what's important is that, because we help them to understand the implications of the different alternatives on their monthly costs, they actually decided to invest into lifts, which are actually very expensive interventions. I think the total budget for the lifts just was around 1 million, so which is a lot for this kind of a building, yes. But once they understood what is the impact on their monthly utility cost, they said they are willing to pay for this extra money because getting to the 5th floor and down is not very simple for the elderly people. And nowadays we know that 30 to 40% of the people living in those old buildings that need renovation are elderly people.
This real voices always add something very powerful to the technical results, actually, because also we have to also understand their needs and hear them in order to reformulate maybe the way that we explain to them our renovations plans, because otherwise they will say no. So maybe we have to work better in this way. So every pilot brings valuable lessons. So what are the key lessons learned from your pilot side, and which best practices would you share with other projects or initiatives working in the same topic?
I think we had quite a few lessons learned regarding the challenges of the energy performance contracting and etc. For example, resident resistance to change, weak collaboration, loss of spatial quality if a scope is fixed too early, and etc. High upfront investment costs and etc. So we can divide the lessons learned into social, economic, technical, environmental, legal, and process-related challenges. And what could be improved is especially like I gave an example. So we had 2 pilots within the same project. And this helped us to actually learn between the pilots. One was in the early stages of the planning of the renovation intervention, and the other one was already in the process of renovating, yes. And this actually helped us to kind of take the lessons learned from one pilot to the other one as part of one project, which is not very common, yes. So if this is possible, we recommend also other similar initiatives, projects in Europe to actually go along the similar lines. Then second thing, it's not only making information feasible or understandable to the residents, but it's also about embedding expert knowledge into the tools of making right decisions. So whenever the owners of the residents of the building are making a decision to do a deep renovation, then the tool needs to say that you now need to also select a ventilation solution, because deep renovation without ventilation is not allowed, or it requires the ventilation, yes. So you can develop tools that build in this knowledge of experts of doing things properly, and you can bound their decision space in that way, basically, so they can only do right decisions. Then the third one, I think the main thing for us in Estonian pilot was related to the commissioning, as I've already mentioned a couple of times. We also had a master's dissertation work where we figured out that when it comes to the documentation, design, documentation and all contracting, etc., then the requirements for the quality and the high quality assurance are already there and relatively well documented in the different types of documents of the project delivery, yes. But it often comes down to how those things are actually implemented on the construction site. And that's one of the reasons why we focused on the development of the commissioning guidelines particularly for the activities on the construction site, together with the checklists to make sure that things are delivered to the targets and the quality is assured to the maximum. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing that we actually haven't discussed yet at this point is that as part of the Tallinn pilot, we also studied, it was more theoretical, scientific or research oriented, but we also studied the implications of the district level renovation, because the Academia D4 pilot building is part of another consortium of 4 apartment buildings that are now being renovated together. And it will be the one company doing it. And as part of this, we did a cost estimation, project scheduling, CO2 impact, and all the other measures related estimations of what would it mean to renovate buildings together. What kind of cost implications does it have? What kind of CO2 implications does it have? And we learned that you could actually speed up the renovation process quite significantly if you renovate buildings, not only one by one, but at least coupled together, or even 4 together. Yes. And that's what we need, because by 2050 all the building stock needs to be decarbonized, but the current renovation rate is around 1% in Europe on average, and this is not enough to reach the target.
Always good to save others from learning the hard way. So yeah, I think these tips and lessons learned, they are very valuable for other projects. So thank you for sharing this. And yes, I think the idea of having 2 pilots, one you work, and then in the second one, all the lessons learned or best practices that you get from the first one, transfer to a second one. It's a great idea, and it's not obvious in all the pilot sites in the European projects, right? Because we focus just in implementation, new technology solutions in one pilot site, and we don't think about the transfer itself within the project, right? So I think it's a very great idea to have this kind of demonstrations in the pilot sites. So yeah, I encourage other projects to do so. So let's zoom out to the European level. So how do the results of your pilot site contribute to a broader EU priorities or policies? And to what extent can your solutions be replicated into other cities or other regions? You have mentioned already a little bit, but yeah, maybe you can explain a little bit in detail.
So when it comes to policy relevance, I think, there are 3 different contexts. We have this European renovation wave, which basically states that in order to decarbonize the building stock by 2050, we need to basically renovate, I think it's around 35 million housing units, and this is a lot. Then from the perspective of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, we need to be targeting the worst performing buildings, and the quick wins especially come from the renovation of the worst performing residential buildings, and we have them quite a lot. So we need to move from the whatever, in the Estonian pilot example, from average G class to the C class minimum. And we can always, of course, do better, as we did in our pilots. We did Energy 13 was aiming to achieve the target or the Energy Performance Class B, and Academia D4 Energy Performance Class A, yes. And then, of course, the third context, I would say, is the just transition or affordability. And it's becoming more and more, challenging for the also young families to, basically have apartments or housing in the new buildings and etc. So they are often going, especially for the first phases of their life, into the old existing buildings, but those need to be renovated. The building conditions need to be improved and etc. So, and I think here the public funding, for example, coming through the ACE or GREDEX, which used to be ACE, need to be targeted more explicitly and more clearly. And that's something we would like to focus in the near future as well. How to have better targeting of the limited financial resources for the renovation of the buildings. Because in Tallinn, for example, we already know that in some types of buildings, with a certain mix of residents, it already makes sense to renovate deeply without even any support from the government or any agencies. But in other residents, it might not be the same case. You actually might need support from the government to actually promote renovation in those buildings and encourage them to renovate.
Yeah.
And the replicability, we have already demonstrated as part of our pilot that it's replicable, taking lessons learned from one pilot building to another pilot building, from Energy 13 to Academia 14. And we have those buildings around 14,000. So we have lots of potential for the replication. Secondly, when it comes to replication, we have this Estonian digital building registry, which was also integrated into EBENTO platform through the extracting of the energy performance contracting, but also the LOD, level of detail geometry information from the registry and transfer to the EBENTO platform for a dynamic map. Yes. And then, of course, the methods and tools we have been developing, like commissioning, the renovation planning, these are also generalizable and applicable to other contexts. They just need to be adapted to a specific context, by adjusting the numbers and units and etc.
Okay, great. This is where local action really connects with European ambition. And finally, looking ahead, what are the next steps after EBENTO? Are there any plans to scale, replicate, or further develop solutions?
For sure, yes. So we started quite a few initiatives as part of this project. The tools for the integration with the Estonian building registry, the commissioning frameworks, as I already mentioned, we need to further develop them and implement them in practice together with the other supply stakeholder groups, also the funding agencies, etc. So right now we have already only finished the Energy 13 renovation project, which was completed last year in December. The academia is in process. We want to do some post assessment of the actual impacts of the renovation and also the actual impact of the renovating multiple similar kinds of buildings in proximity together. Yes, because this is a kind of a first initiative in Estonia where we do 4 exactly same types of buildings renovated being renovated together. So batch renovation is something we want to further develop, and then of course. We need to integrate these to the tools and the methods, the solutions we have developed into all new upcoming projects as well. And I personally believe that we actually need to even zoom out even maybe more. We need to zoom out from the neighborhoods to the entire city level and integrate the renovation planning and strategy development and the renovation delivery with urban scale comprehensive city planning, basically with the tools of, in this region, you have that many buildings. You have those buildings. Out of these buildings, these are residential buildings. They perform as such. So the worst performing buildings in this neighborhood are this, and that. And now, if you are a city and you want to promote renovation, start from these buildings because you can have this impact immediately.
So now you must start working with the public administration.
We are already actually quite closely working with them. So, for example, in Energy 13, this was also public Tallinn City social house. Yes. So as you can see, we are already quite closely working with public administration and governance as well. So.
Okay. Yeah. Always the public administration is a little bit tough because they have all the
rules
procedures, etc. So it takes much time, right? But yes, we will be watching closely what comes next for you guys. Congratulations for the big effort that you have been doing in EBENTO. Ergo, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, and also congratulations again to you and your team for the excellent work done in Tallinn. It's clear that this pilot site has been one of the most stronger pillars of EBENTO. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned to discover more insights of EBENTO pilot sites across Europe. Thank you very much, Ergo, again for this interview.
Thank you for the invitation.
All the best, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.